Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session where we'll be discussing the Unit 7 under Block 2. To continue with the new product development strategies that we had left behind yesterday, today we're going to look into the process ahead. Today's session we'll be talking about how do we define a product levels, which we had covered earlier also, but we can go through in integrities. We'll also look into the reasons why introduction of products into the market is essential, and how do we synthesize the new product development processes, and how do we understand the concepts and test those concepts and develop the new product, and then getting into the various stages of the new product development, and what are the challenges that are there in the new product development process. So to just get started, we'll look into the first basic thing that we have already covered, but we will be talking about is what is a product? What does a product mean? As you know, the product is a bundle of utilities which basically attends to the needs and the wants of the customers at an appropriate price. So when you're talking in terms of the bundle of utilities, it has as product managers, one has to look into what are the different ways in which the product can be divided into levels to attend to those benefits that the customers are looking forward to. If you remember, in the product hierarchy, we talked about what are the different product levels. Just to reiterate that again, as you can see in the figure here, it can be seen that at the core of this particular product level, in the product hierarchy level, is these are the product levels. At the base is the core of the product, which is the products what it stands for. For example, if you're talking about a watch is basically to have anything to do with time, anything that has, so it has to have the core benefit of giving the time. Now, whether it is a digital, whether it's analog or whatever, so that needs to be packed in at the generic level. So this is basically an offer which any watch would have. Now, obviously, when you're talking in terms of these product, obviously the product would have certain expectations which needs to meet from the customer's point of view. For example, it should be ease of use, convenience, right? In different form, whether it is one which is a wristwatch, or it's a watch which can be hung on the wall. All these things are particularly a part of. So when you say it's a wristwatch, there are certain expectations that a customer would have, and normally these are factored into the product. So these are the expected areas that a product should be looking into, or a product manager has to look into while factoring that, while offering this into the marketplace. Till such time, the product does not necessarily able to differentiate from the rest of the other offerings in the marketplace. The next higher level in the product level that we talk about is the augmented parameter of the level of the product. So when you talk about the augmented part of the different, it gives you a very differentiated kind of a offering to the marketplace. So obviously, beyond expectation, if one wants to differentiate the product in terms of its offering, then obviously augmentation helps to differentiate that. For example, it could talk about aesthetics, it could talk about colors, it could talk about the pricing, price affordability, and other value-added parameters which can be added to a product so as to give more differentiation from the rest of the product. For example, in the case of a watch, you can talk about the serviceability, or you're talking about the price points at which they give in terms of the looks, the designs, the kind of offerings that you have, which can augment the value perception in the minds of the customer and help them create better satisfaction among the customer groups. If you look into the potential part, this is more of a futuristic point of view because every product, as you know, it undergoes a kind of a change of augment of bringing in new things to the product. In product modifications, we have seen that whenever we want to modify certain things, we need to add on certain attributes, keeping in mind the future requirements. For example, today we are talking about a movement in the watch. Again, I will go back to that, saying that okay, you need something like a digital, both analog and digital formats being mixed into it. Not only a watch is a watch today, it can be integrated into the smartphone, and you can take calls over there. You can even see your heartbeat, and you can see your body temperature, the blood pressure, the sugar level. All these are being almost like a Fitbit kind of a requirement, and it keeps on giving more and more. So from a point of view of the brand or the product achieving better acceptance from the marketplace, augmented and potential levels of the product help you to increase the value perception in minds of the customer. Every product, obviously, as very rightly pointed out, serves a particular necessity. And when you talk about a new product introduction, it also that sometimes the necessity becomes the mother of invention. As I was talking to you yesterday about the Band-Aid. It came up as a pure exercise in terms of necessity. Somebody who cut the finger while cutting vegetables, and the bandage was put which did not stay on. So obviously that gave an idea as to whether can we have something which can be an adhesive which can stay on while you are cutting and can help your fingers from the wound that's coming from the cuts, and that can help you in the work. And lo and behold, that particular difficulty or that necessity to look for a protection while you are for the injured finger gave rise to a product idea called a Band-Aid, and today it's history. I mean, that we don't look back at it. Today we have got much more variations out of it. We have got waterproof, we have got stretchability, breathe friendly, and so on and so forth. And of Band-Aid of various sizes, which are used in multiple kind of post-operative procedures. So you will find every product dwells on a problem area. Yes, it necessitates the introduction of new products. And of course, as Drucker says, the aim of marketing is to understand customers so well that the product and service fits itself as well as sells itself. It need not be put in the marketplace just to forcefully force-fit the product into that. It should be something which can be easily acceptable. Let's look into some of the launches, product launches of new product, which basically can be called as the factors which are required, or are necessities, or factors which are necessitating new product introduction. So that first, and that as you can see here, the changes in needs and wants. Markets are classic places where the needs keep changing. They are dynamic spaces, and the changes are a continuous process. So obviously, as marketers, it is a duty of the marketers to identify what changes are going to play in the lives of people, and of course what kind of new problems that they are facing, so as to give new perspectives in terms of new product ideas, and which can see the light of the day in terms of new products. Going to the next point, which is competition. Obviously, competition is one of the, today's market is a highly competitive market, and today if you don't do it, somebody else will. It does not depend upon what has been a past history of yours, and if you do not get into this change, you're likely to miss the bus. Like for example, we are giving the example of Samsung and Xiaomi here. Each one wants to be the market leader in India, looking into the sales volume. Of course, you have got iPhone, but if you find more intense competition among these players who are in the same field, and they come up with new product launches at almost regular intervals to do a need filling activity. Technology is another important factor which is becoming a kind of a disruptor, and today when you talk in terms of any upgradation in your product, technology plays a very vital role in that, and obviously that also helps in bringing in, which necessitates new product development or new product launches. Being part of the global market today, we are talking in terms of opportunities across the world. So some products which are uh, matured in certain markets may not work in other markets, so you need to bring in new products into those markets, and by application of your technology you can always uh, give new products to the new markets as well. Sometimes we also imitate the products which are doing well in other parts of the world and bring it home. Sometime back when India beyond before 1993, most of the products were mostly imitated products in Indian market. But today, India is becoming a part of the globalized market, are able to see global launches of new products which are happening. So it depends upon the kind of economy that we are talking about, where the market is thriving. So whether it's a developed economy or developing economy, though India is coming under the developing economy, it has all the capacity of being considered as a developed economy. If you see the improvement of the economic condition or in terms of the GDP, India is going to be the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world, and we are targeting something like in 2030 we should be the third largest economy. So that being the same scenario, today it becomes a hotbed for launch of products which may be considered new in this market. Obviously, when you look into the name and the reputation, companies want to expand, they want to really establish their space in terms of their credibility in their core competency, and they want to be also bring in new things to the world. Like so, obviously, if you see Tesla or Amazon's space travel initiatives are a case in point where we have seen that they have an interest to get into those kind of ways because they've got a reputation at stake. So that might also incentivize new product development. Obviously, when you're looking into your product portfolios, we know that one of the critical factors is how to have a portfolio which is very balanced, at the same time able to meet the requirements of the market, and going forward should be able to develop give revenues to the market, to the company. So when when you're referring to this future cash flows, new product development have a very futuristic view, and we've already discussed that in the past sessions, that how new product development has become a necessity today, and you never know, you can get competition from anywhere. So it helps you to in the growth process, new product additions, whether in terms of your diversification of your portfolio or going for new product development properties to give new products to the existing markets. Everywhere you will find that it necessitates a new initiatives in terms of product development. Uh, Obviously, when you are talking about such high level interventions, which calls for a lot of resources, a lot of raw materials, a lot of investments, a lot of technology, manpower, this needs to be also strengthened. So obviously, registration of the trademarks are critical for your ideas. So product patents become very critical, that if you are finding out something new, how to file for a patent and get patent in your name. And nowadays also, in case of literature and all that, copyrights are very critical to establish the newness of it, to ensure that your new products and ideas get accepted in the marketplace. Let's look at the next. We have already talked about this in the last class, that what does a new product development look into? So when you say new product, what does that mean? The first thing is it can be looked in from three parameters. Of course, when you're talking about new product, obviously it means a new product that you're going to launch. The other thing could be a modified product, an existing product where minor modifications can be done and you can come up with a new product. Or it could be like a product which is in one market, you are being introduced into a new market. So it depends upon the level of acceptance in the new market. So it can be considered as a new market. In the new market, it can be considered as a new product. So what are the steps involved? As we know, the first step in the new product development is the idea generation, something which we spent time yesterday, where the source of getting the ideas, looking into both internal and external sources. You could look into generating the ideas through various techniques like the focus group technique, or we talk about, of course, the attribute listing or the heuristic ideation technique. These are some of the techniques which we talked about, and we looked into having brainstorming focus group as techniques to whip up those product ideas. And of course, when we do that, we also not only look into interacting within the sources, we also look into analyzing the competitors' products. We also look into the customer feedbacks, because that is very, very crucial, because the kind of new product that you're going to bring out, is it really going to be effective, relevant to the customers? So even if the product idea is floated, what kind of response are we getting from the customers? So focus groups help you in achieving that. Furthermore, we are also looking into inputs in terms of new products from the intermediaries and the various partners who are there, that how new product ideas can it be applicable to a given market. So we try to vet that out. So these are the sources where we looked into the generation of product ideas. Brainstorming, as you know, is a process, is a technique where we generate maximum number of ideas, and with absolutely no intervention from anyone. We talk to people from various sources, various skill sets or knowledge, and try to assimilate even the simplest of the ideas which come out into this. It may look very, very awkward, but when it comes down to a kind of whipping up new ideas, we take it from any source and try to work out, revolve around as to whether those can be feasible as we go. So if you see the brainstorming session, we whip up the ideas, and later on we put it into a matrix where we can see the viability, the competency of the firm, the competitor, the market size, and the future profitability prospects from the chosen area, and the ability, of course, the technical and the infrastructure ability of the firm to really execute it. Where focus groups are basically looking into the generating ideas and throwing back to the customers, basically to customer panels, and it's generally recorded and it's moderated by expert. So you get a lot of key insights into what the customers are feeling, as a result of which they can give rise to new aspects of what the product should be looking at. Depth interviews. In-depth interviews can be looked upon from very, very important, that one-to-one interviews with the experts, with consultants in the industry can help us. Like for example, if you want to get into something like your let's say security systems, we need to know what kind of security systems are existing today. We need to talk to the experts as to what kind of new security systems we want to bring into the marketplace. And today, if you talk about an app also that requires cyber security, so you never know what kind of information can be brought in through these when you are dealing with subject experts. They give you almost things which can be workable or not. Apart from that, we also look into various other public sources to get those information. Projective techniques are found to be very helpful in terms of how you are preparing the content of your advertisements or your communication strategies, and what are the pinning points that customers look forward to, and what basically the kind of language that people get response to or give response to. So something which excites them, something like a picture or a tagline or a cartoon or whatever the case may be. What is the kind of, suppose they are given a slogan, what kind of slogans are applicable to a particular opportunity? So that can be used to gain insights into the psyche of the people. After that comes once the ideas are developed, obviously we look into the screening part. We've already dealt with the screening part of the ideas, how to filter out, how to make it more acceptable in terms of the ratings and things like that. Once we know that the ideas are screened and we are able to zero down from a larger number to a manageable few. We also break that out in terms of, as I told you, the implementation part. Is it from an organization perspective? Does it filter? Does it go well with the objective plans for future? Because every company has a mission and a vision to guide them in future. So is it aligned to that? What kind of resources would be required? Do you have enough cash to fund that particular idea and convert it? Because at this point of time, if you don't do this, it is likely to hit back very badly and we will be caught napping. So next we move into the concept development and testing. Before I get into the ideas have to be further converted into the tangible products and services. So before I get into any kind of a product offering, I need to know what kind of product should come out of that particular idea. So we need to also assess certain business level considerations from the marketing perspective, like for example, the size of the market, what kind of, how much time does it require to things happen, what kind of break-even point can we look at as we look into the future demand, what rate is that the demand is likely to increase in the future, given the kind of interest it has been able to whip up. So we use something like an 8R model where you try to see whether the potential buyers are aware of the product in the first place, because awareness, of course, has to be built. If the awareness is there, that's fine. But even if that awareness is not there, we need to know whether that awareness is the relevant awareness or not. Because after being aware, what we need to know is that is there any kind of action that has been taken in terms of the response. The next action which we look into is the trial. Are they really trying the new idea that we are trying, which is being proposed? And then we look into the availability of the particular product. So whether it is available in the store or do they have to make a lot of efforts to get that product. In that case, obviously, when the new product has been planned to be put in a particular store, let's say in the offline or the online store, the kind of the acceptance that is there from the customer is a very, very critical thing. Does the product have purchase, repurchase, repeat purchase prospective? If you're into FMCG space, perhaps the repurchase is very high. If you look into the consumer durables, it is there, but then it takes a certain amount of time. When it comes to specialty goods, which we are talking about, which are the high-end big ticket purchases, obviously the repurchasing is very much low. Here we look into customer satisfaction driving more referrals or through word of mouth. So going far down, we will look into how this 8R variables with the help of an example here, as you can see it here, for a herbal toothpaste, a product idea which has come that, okay, let's get into herbal toothpaste. You know that everybody during the COVID times felt the need, or even before that, there was a need for them to move. Ever since Patanjali came up, the kind of hype it created about herbal products was humongous. And that gave rise to that, okay, should I get into this? So if you're planning to get into something like when a herbal toothpaste comes with an objective, with a very kind of perception, people say don't like it and they have to be tasty. So if you're planning to bring something like this, what could be the projected phase? And 8R variables would look something like this. As you can see here, awareness levels and the year wise. It's a projected, it's based on certain calculations which you look into the future market. If you say the awareness, as awareness increases, right, look into the profitability, of course, obviously it increases. So there's a direct correlation, as you can see. As more number of trials, as you see, the trial is mostly in the first year, and once you get good results, it leads to the probability of acceptance. Availability is one of the most crucial issues for any product, whether it is an existing product or it's a new product, in terms of being accepted. Because until unless you have a very robust distribution network or try to reach out to your customers, it's not going to yield any result. Where there's a repeat purchase, again, that is very critical for the sustenance of the product, of the new product, and whether making a business sense to really go ahead for it, or we can take a call not to go for it or to hold on to this, right? what kind of repeat customers. As you can see, a price and volumes, as you can see the figures, they keep on increasing year on year, but then is that increase coming from new market or existing markets or whatever thing? We need to know that within 5 years time, what would be the kind of expanse in terms of the reach factor in the marketplace. And of course, the profitability, as you know, as you can see from the negative, it moves to the positive. That means you achieve break even in the second year, and these are the projected figures, and can you move into the profit zone from the second year onwards. So a good proposition in terms of investment into new products. Based on this, you may think of coming up with an entrepreneur may think of going for this particular example, like a toothpaste. But having said that, it does not mean that the customers will still accept it. You need to further understand what kind of need patterns they are, or what kind of a relevancy does this have in the marketplace. So herbal tastes good, but the point is it acceptable to various cohort groups? Like for example, is it appealing to the children? Does it appeal to those who do not use toothpaste at all? Or do villagers choose sticks and do not, they can be used to change this because they don't see that the current synthetic toothbrushes or toothpaste toothpaste are good enough for cleaning, because they are used to using something at home from their own learning, that they choose certain sticks of which is far more effective than the toothpaste. So is it going to be a substitute for that? So these concepts can be further tested, and you can work out what kind of concepts will give you better mileage. And the second, you move into, out of these, maybe it's a 2-3 concepts which comes out, you may zero in on any one particular concept depending upon the kind of profitability it is likely to bring in the future. And then we can work out something called the product positioning map. So when you talk about positioning, we talk about certain attributes and we take it on a scale. Like in this case, we're talking about price point. We're looking into an expensive for an inexpensive. One that is available, and second one is on the availability, which is easily available and not available. Based on this, you can map out whether which product category, product concepts are more acceptable, in which kind of pattern they are there, based on the perceptions of the people. Once we do that, we can zero in on which kind of segment we should be looking at for the product being provided. Once that is done, we can also get into the concept testing. Now, when you talk about the concept testing, you have to ask some of the following points. As you can see, are the customers finding the product that will be satisfy their needs? Of course, need satisfaction is critical, the more bottom line kind of a question, I would say. The perception regarding value received that they have received, is it a substantial value that they are getting, or is it as it is not major change from what the existing scenario is, right? Then in that case, obviously the potential of this concept getting accepted becomes less. And what is the purchase intention? Is it a very natural kind of a persuasion which is there, or do you need to really persuade them to buy, right? How much do they think that your product can really help them out? So believability in the product offering. And of course, the purchase occasion. What kind of occasions would the customer would like to buy? Like you might find that things like watches, they are more given as gifts, right? You can give them on certain occasions. And what is the purchase frequency? The purchase frequency primarily depends on the nature of the product. Obviously, consumer goods, the frequency would be higher, but depending upon the usage pattern. If it is consumer electronics or consumer something like a shopping goods, which are there but they are not very high, and obviously the kind of purchase frequency is for critical. It may not be that high like the grocery items or FMCG products. Coming to specialty, the frequency may far more fall down. So if we're looking into this, the cost of acquisition and the cost of what you need to make it available would be very high. So based on this concept testing, we can work out something like variables which the customer could be considering while making the purchases. So the purchase preferences of the customers can be looked into by the variables. Like in this case, as you can see here, they have used content analysis to basically arrive at what could be the what kind of a combination is available to them. As you can see, there are pack sizes here with respect to a product, and there are also pack colors, price points, and product color. If you see the ranking of the customers, you can put it into a ranking format, and given their ranking, what is the possibility? 3 into 3 into 3 into 4. So this can be possible 108 different combinations that they can get. And by using regression, we can use utility drawn from these as 13. So since there are 13 here, we say look at 13 points. So I can easily find out from these top 4 combinations that these are the ones, the product color, kind of combinations of pack size, pack color, and price and things. So basically, you are trying to fit in which kind of attributes will the product have in terms of pack size, which among these 50, 100, 200, which one would be the best one? Among the pack color, which one is the right color? What kind of price points that they are looking into? And what kind of a color that the product should have? And it will give you certain options. Obviously, the one which gives you maximize in terms of the regression values, you can always find out which product to be, which attribute, which combination of attributes need to be taken up for the concept testing. Next, we move into, once this concepts from product ideas to concept is clear and been tested, we look into the development of marketing strategy. So marketing strategy involves obviously the broad level, strategic level, as well as the in the tactical level. Here we look into something like the market credentials and brand positioning. Depending upon what kind of company, what kind of brand image it had, your effort in getting into new products will talk in terms of your credibility. Like for example, HUL introducing a product in the marketplace will definitely carry a very, very positive impression in the minds of the people, because people have understood what the brand is all about, what is the positioning of the brand, how do they look at the various brands offered by they have got something to fall back on. For a relatively new one, the market credentials may not work out, so one has to look into how to create a very positive vibe with the market. Next comes the financial distribution. Two important things in case of marketing strategy is obviously the kind of budgets that we have for the marketing of the new product. Because as you know, finance department will be very keen on understanding that how is the money getting properly, optimally used, and what kind of tools and techniques are being used to ensure that the cash flow is happening, the revenues are being attained, incomes are targeted, revenues are achieved. So obviously they would put in money based on that, or they could stagger it depending upon what the requirements are. And in the distribution side, they would also look at the cost factor. The cost is a very critical function out here. So in terms of distribution, so they say distribution cost, what kind of pack sizes, what kind of inventories, what kind of warehouses, all can. And of course, in terms of pricing, what kind of market margins that you are going to give for any product. So obviously, for general product, the new product should be given slightly maybe higher margins, so that the intermediaries who are there can be interested for pushing the product to the marketplace. Next, we move into the most important part, which is the business analysis. So obviously, the marketing strategy is derived from the business analysis, and we look into the broader factors of what are the cost of going for a new product development, the cost, sales, and projections. You must have seen in the PLC when we talked about it, we gave a certain indication in terms of the characteristics of the PLC, that if the sales go up, right, what could be the cost, how it can come down, and now what are the profit projections going across different stages of the PLC. And obviously, we look into aspects like what are the number of target customers, what is the purchase frequency, what is the purchase quantity, right? And what kind of communication has that is to be made, and what kind of commissions are made, what's the cost to the company, because that's a very, very critical aspect of the business analysis. Next, we move into the most critical function of the product development. And here we will talk in terms of something called the QFD. I would like to take just narrate few things before we get into applying this QFD. This is a technique which is used for product development. So what they do is customers are asked certain questions. One is the what part of their preferences, and the other one is how, which is basically the transform those preferences into the technical specifications. Characteristic, and these are the things which the firm can control to a major extent. So the what and the when are listed out, and they are correlated. Like if there is a high degree of correlation, a double plus sign is given. If the two are correlated and moderately, a plus sign is given. If they are not correlated, zero is allocated. If they are negatively, then it is minus. If it is highly negative, that is double minus, right? So based on the correlation results, they can help us to guide us to what is the what and the how part are correlated. Then we get into the preferences in terms of the allocation that the people give in terms of whether the preferences could be in the high, low, or moderate, which could be a 9, 3, 1, right? And those who don't have any correlation may have the 0 may be allocated. Based on this, you're multiplying the correlated values, scores, with the additions, with the number of preferences here. So I'll give you an example to substantiate this particular thing that I would like to take. As you can see here, this is with respect to a laptop. What are the parameters that would look into when a person is buying laptop? So these are some of the specifications, technical specifications, and here the customer requires the what part. What are they looking for in their preferences? Like for example, fast in getting switched on, let me switch on faster, doesn't get heated up, it's easy to use, good battery backup, durability. So these are all what part of the thing, and these are the how part of the specifications that needs to be there. So once you have the correlation, you will also have to look into the weightage factor, because every customer may not have the same weightage. So you will look into the weightage factor, which is derived out of the customer preferences in terms of which one among them is the most crucial parameter. So once you have drawn out this, you will find the relative importance is found out by the multiplication of this into the scores that you've been given to you. 9, 1, 3, so and so in terms of the importance rating across the relative importance. And you'll find the relative importance weightage is calculated by dividing this by the total number of weightage which is there. And you will see the weightage here is like this. Like for example, the relative importance of this is very, very high, SST, in terms of the kind of storage space is very, very important for the customer. So based on the kind of the capability of the firm, you can the capability of the machine, you are looking at this to be a very critical function. The next which comes is that whether it switches on fast, and so also in terms of the RAM size. Others are important, but they're not in the same space. Then what is the material that is used? Based on this, you can find out which kind of combination has to be factored into your product, and they get into manufacturing that product into the put it into the product space and go for the testing. The next phase is once you have brought what kind of skill parameters you need to bring in based on the customer preferences. You need to put it into the market for testing. The entire calculation of this has been highlighted in the material which has been provided. Go back to see how this particular combination is worked out and which one should be factored into your product. Next, we move into the market testing. When we talk about market testing, we are looking into not only the product testing, but we are also looking into the various other aspects of the new product development, like the pricing and so on and so forth. So, what is the test marketing? Test marketing is that instead of going to all across before you go for the final commercial implementation, various aspects related to the marketing strategy are to test, and it could be done at any point, any part of your market which you choose to be. And once you are testing the product, surveys are there. Since it could be across different landscape, different geographical locations, across different kind of formats, and then the information is collected from them and they are analyzed for, and corrections are carried out before you go for the national launch. There are different other types of test marketing, which is simulated. In simulated, what happens? You try to each test marketing has a certain advantages and disadvantages. So let's understand that. Simulated are mostly where you try to simulate a similar situation like the test market. So you choose a test market, go there and provide this product, looking into like a normal campaign. They offer it, and then you see that what can be, whether it is faster than the. So you can have an experimental group and also normal group, and can find out whether the test marketing is effective. So you're simulating a market, and this can be done in the laboratories to basically get inferences. Control test marketing, again, you can go to the actual market and see how the control settings, the responses from the marketplace. Like for example, you could choose some select retail stores and then put your product there and do all kind of merchandising there and offer it to the customers, and you collect the data whether it is really creating a kind of a acceptance or not. Sales levels, where you allow the product to in the actual market to give it for some time in certain markets, not all markets, and see what is the sales. So for example, in case of a FMCG product, which is basically requires repurchase. So after the first purchase is that second purchase is being triggered off after the usage of the product. So if that is happening, you need to make the test marketing available for that period of time. Otherwise, you may not be able to assign the results may not be able to analyze the results very well. Coming to the in case of industrial products, you can also do alpha testing and beta testing. Alpha testing is mostly done within the factories with the help of the test engineers and employees. Beta testing is mostly done with the customers who give feedback, but these feedbacks are basically recorded and analyzed before you go for the final commercialization process. The last we move into is the commercialization process. This is where, and if you remember in the last class we talked about that, why test marketing of this is important is that your businesses, when you're talking about today, new product development has assumed a very important significance in terms of the growth of the organization. If that is so, it will call for efforts, money, revenue, in terms of initiatives, investments, and of course, borrowing money from financial institutions or from the market, and the stakes are very high. If we do not go meticulously through these steps of developing the new product, and before you go for mass commercialization, we are likely to hit a very dead end, and it could be very fatal for the organization, and a lot of money would be wasted. So to minimize that risk, we are going through the process of this new product development stages. Now, as you can see here, this is the commercialization is actual product which takes place in the marketplace. It can be done with any new product that is launched in the marketplace. You must have seen when cell phone was launched, in similar services were launched, it creates a different kind of the packaging, the kind of euphoria, the kind of linkages that everybody who's there in the value chain right from the logistics guy to the marketing guy, the sales guy, the intermediaries, everywhere. They have to be sensitized and also create a kind of a enthusiasm which helps in engaging your customers more. Okay, and obviously commercialization is mostly by big players get more visibility in that space, but lesser players may not go for a very opulent kind of a commercialization, may go in a staggered way, but that depends on the entrepreneurs and the promoters of that particular product. Now, there are a few things one needs to understand regarding the commercialization. First is the when would you go for the new product development? So product launches, or what would be the how would you go for introduction, and which are locations would that be made available? To case in point, you will come across when KFC launched in India, they looked at certain markets to launch in the marketplace. Like they looked into urban centers, they looked into the cultural aspects, where they could find that the culture of accepting the KFC logic, they found that they can be there. Like that's why I find that mostly the self-service concept is a very common thing in South. So they selected that. So from the space point of view, they found that it would be more relevant in terms of the location is more valid. When you're talking about how will you introduce, obviously it depends upon how the familiarity is there in that marketplace, and of course the timing part. When you look into the timing, we have to see to it that what is the right time to launch a product. Mostly find that in India, mostly we use the festivals, the cultural things of cultural importance, where we find that the consumers spend goes up substantially, and at that point of time, will that product that you are trying to bring in, or service that you are trying to bring in, can really take care of the thaw in the market in terms of the enthusiasm, which is great. So when you are going to launch, obviously there are certain launch perspectives which are there, right? So as you are looking into changing your product, you will have to bring in new products. You have to be heard, right? And you have to create a real what do you call, a kind of appreciation or awareness in the minds of the people. It should create an attention in the minds of the people. So you do a lot of entertainment events, road shows, which can be coupled along with your traditional advertising and marketing communication avenues to create a kind of I would say an enthusiasm in the marketplace, because that is very critical to get that kind of a response. You have to ensure that these products are properly made aware. Many a times you'll find that while you are doing this, your competition is also as at the hindsight watching. If they find that it is slowly getting accepted, they will jump into the game. So you also have to find out tools and techniques to ward off any kind of it. First of all, you have to build sufficient barriers to see that they don't come during the time of the first phase of your commercialization. Okay. And the strategy for introduction, as I was telling you, the expenses is likely to shoot up, because you can see in the product life cycle during the introductory session, the stages of your product life cycle, your promotion cost, your infrastructural cost, manpower, everything goes on to a high, because you want to maximize the impact for the product to be accepted. In new product, the imperative, the importance is far more, because obviously because it's a new product, people don't know about it, so you may have to splurge more. You have to go for more investments in terms of visibility, in terms of product visibility and brand visibility, and make people more aware, and try to persuade them to come for an action of at least coming and inquire about it. Once that happens, then comes the path of how you can take them into the fold, and salespeople can come in and can start selling the products to them by convincing them what it is all about. Right? The location is again depends upon the nature of the product, the way it is, where the markets are spread, and what kind of resources you have, and how your product will be utilized. Right? Obviously, the small players obviously do not have the liberty to go all across, so they conduct test marketing at their places of convenience. But at the same time, we need to understand that those markets are your representative markets. On the other hand, the larger firms, bigger firms, they look for huge mega budget kind of interaction in the marketplace. As a result, what happens? It gives you a lot of visibility. And today, when we talk about integrated marketing communication, you are able to rope in PR, press conferences, road shows, events, everything into the fold to create that hoopla. Look at what happens in the IPL. IPL is an idea, right, by BCCI, and they wanted to bring it into the marketplace. And right from the bidding process, everything gets attention. Initially, when it started, it was not giving that kind of visibility, but as it proceeded, and cricket, we are a cricket-loving nation, so obviously that makes sense to create this kind of a hype. And of course, since the Bollywood film fraternity, which who are brands by themselves, they also started owning some of the clubs. So it got more mileage in terms of speaking points to the consumers, right? And obviously, if we talk in terms of current example which has been highlighted here, in terms of the Ola, who have entered into the electric scooters. This is to some extent is also replicated by the fact that the government has created an avenue for electric vehicles today. So most of them, most of the companies are, whether you are specialized or not, whether you have the technical know or not, they are all running into this space of creating more EVs in the marketplace, whether it's a two-wheeler or it's a four-wheeler. But having said that, Ola Electric, created kind of a visibility which is there, and today it is giving a run for money to players like Honda, which is the leading in terms of the two-wheeler market in terms of non in the keyless factory, in the keyless category, in the scooter category. And Ola is coming back with a lot of new varieties, new forms, and so on and so forth. So as a result, you have to ensure that whenever there are new things which are coming in, the obvious thing is how to create more awareness and more visibility and more engagement with the customers. The more you do that, you are able to, if you remember, we talked about the diffusion of innovation, that the initial stages for any new product, if it's an innovative product, the acceptance is very low, but it goes on improving as you move to the early majority and the early adopters to early majority. So between innovators, early adopters, and early majority, the transition has to be faster. But if for that to happen, you need to back it up with the right kind of marketing strategy while you're putting it into the commercial space. We now look at how business plans are not necessarily important, not only consideration for general products but also for new products. So we are able to talking in terms of new products. So obviously, a business plan is one which is basically a document which tells you what is the vision, mission, and how to connect your business plans to your vision, mission of the company. What kind of market that you are looking into with your new products, what kind of marketing plan. Marketing plan is a written document which spells out what is the situation today, what are the new targets that you are identifying, and getting into understanding what kind of value proposition that you want to bring into the marketplace in terms of the values to the consumer, the collaborators, and to the company. And then we look into the implementation part of the marketing strategy, where you're talking in terms of the segmentation. That the strategic part of marketing segment looks into the STP, the segmentation, targeting, positioning, whereas the tactical part looks into the sales promotion, product, and the what kind of alliances for distribution, and what kind of events, incentives that you can give when you are looking into the tactical part of the marketing strategy. It also looks into the projected figures. It is very important for the new product development that we must have what kind of objectives, goals setting has been done for the in the first year, second year, third year, like we have seen it in the TAR. So it needs to see whether those variables are actually working it out. So we must have this benchmark ready to project the planning for the future profitability and the demand for the new product. Also, it indicates, if you've seen in the entire framework, we talked about what kind of profit figures are being achieved, when you are hitting the break even, how soon is the break even achieved, depending upon the revenues that we are talking about. And then we are talking in terms of the implementation of the business plan, where we are talking about how do you control, how do you implement, and how do you ensure that the products are being marketed effectively. If there are any critical situations, how you're going to manage the situations, and what are the contingency plans that are put into place. Competitors and competitors, we already have done this analysis before, so obviously this looks into what kind of, who are your immediate competitors, what kind of edge they have, and what are the risks that you are likely to perceive from them. Last but not the least, I would say, when we get into the HR initiative, the HR part of the business plan, where we're looking into how do we generate the revenues by using our manpower resources. So for the employees management, we have to see what kind of new people are joined, how they are being recruited, how are they being trained, and what are their compensation. Are they attractive enough compared to our competitors? And then we look into the capital requirements of bringing the new product into the marketplace. What is the money that you have been put in, and how much does that really we are going to get back in a certain period of time? Obviously, the conclusion will be part we look into how we touch upon the various important aspects of the entire business plan of promoting the new product idea. So that's a nutshell what we talk in terms of the new product development and implementation. Also control mechanisms, the control where there are checks and balances, we need to know when to. So effectively over a weekly, monthly, there have to be review programs, monitoring programs to see that things are not going beyond the stated objectives. And we look into, there are various aspects which we have covered in this unit today, where we looked into the first part of how the what is the product and why do we need the products in the first place. Obviously, we know that from a business perspective, new products help in expanding our offering to the marketplace. Now, when you talk about newness, what kind of new? It could be completely new product ideas, or it could be modifications, or it could be new markets where we are trying to enter. Then we looked into how to synthesize these entire process from the entire process of new process development, new product development, where you're talking in terms of ideas, collection of ideas, screening of those ideas, leading to product concepts. Those concepts, what kind of parameters we look into the to be factored into those concepts, the attributes that we want to give in with the kind of understanding or feedback from the consumers who are going to possibly going to buy. And then we're looking into the product development part of it. We are developing the product tangibly, and we are supporting it with a marketing strategy to launch it in the marketplace and see to it that it is, of course, before market strategy, we also, after the market strategy is developed, we look into testing it across different select cases. There are different testing mechanisms which are there. After the test marketing results are there, if that there are some areas that needs to be toned back, let's say the packaging has to be done, our promotion has to be carried out in a different format, we look into that and ultimately go for the commercialized entry into the marketplace. and ultimately how this fits into the business plan to make new products or new initiatives or new startups effective in the marketplace. With this, I would like to close today's session.